Okay, this is the interface of the After Effects. The layer system is down here. So whatever you do comes in layers. It's very similar to Photoshop, and this is the Photoshop of the movies actually. Your resources, your footages will come to this window, project window. You will add effects from the window, effects and presets from this window, and you control your effects in this window, effect controls. So everything pretty simple right in front of you. We start with making a composition. What is a composition? A composition in After Effects is a framework that everything is put on top of each other in that framework. So when I hit new composition, let's say we want to make a logo for our movie, right? So let's say logo composition. What are the rest? There's a bunch of different things and I have no idea about that. That's very important. Every one of you is making a movie with your camera, okay? Let me take this camera out. And your camera has a setup. And that setup is, let me mount this lens. Okay. Okay, when I turn on my camera, when you start shooting your movie, you will see that there are a couple of different settings in your camera. You somehow know what is HD mean. And most of the time these days, you are working either with HD or HD24 or HD25. If you are making a movie for television, you have to work with HD25, 1080 25. What that means? That means that your picture has a resolution of 1922 by 1080. It means that 1922 multiplied 1080 pixel is inside your picture. And for every second, what is a movie actually? A movie is a sequence of images that move very fast in front of our eyes, and it gives us an illusion of the motion. So how many frames per second should pass from in front of our eyes? 24 frames per second or 25 frames per second? If you are working for cinema, 24 frames per second. If you're working for television, New Zealand and European television, 25. But sometimes you need 30 frames per second. Japan or US, you need 30 frames per second for these type of televisions. So let's go 25 frames per second. HD 1080 25. So I know what are those numbers now. So HD means 1920 by 1080. 25 means 25 frames per second. Okay? Okay. I press OK. And an empty area will appear here. And I want to add some graphics on this empty area. First of all, let's make a background. Simply, well, you can add lots of different things here. When I right click in this area, or when you come here, file, new, we have made a new project, right? Now I want to add a new layer. So in this timeline window, in this layer window, I just right click and say new. You can add text, you can add solid colors, light, camera. I will talk about null object, or maybe shape layer. Also, you can connect After Effects to two main important software. You can connect After Effects with Photoshop or connect it to Cinema 4D. So whatever you do in Cinema 4D will be updated, will be fed into After Effects very easily, very seamlessly. So I make a solid color, a white color. I just want a white color, and I press here, make it white. Okay. Okay. Oh, what I have now is a white color in the background. What are these tiny things all around? I just talked about few of them. We use these three boxes too much. First of all, the eye that talks about the visibility of this layer. This layer is visible now, invisible now. Visible, invisible. That's quite intuitive. This is making your layers solo. So if you have 1,000 layers on top of each other, then you just press one of them, and then that layer will be shown. You will only be able to see that layer. And this is for locking your layer. I want to lock it down so I don't, when I work, I may accidentally move it. So I may grab it and move it. I don't want to move it, so this is my background. So I just lock it down. It's all right. So right click, again, I want to make a shape layer now. I want to make a shape. I want to make a logo or a motion graphics for my logo. Okay, shape layer, and nothing happens because it's an empty shape layer. And I need to add, and I need to add a rectangle or a rounded rectangle inside that. So I just click on this shape menus and I choose rounded rectangle tool. And you can make a rectangle, but when I press Shift on keyboard, this becomes a square. It limits your movement. I hold on Shift when I'm dragging. Okay, and then I release it. Okay, let's change the color and animate it as quick as possible. I move it to the center. You can change the color of the stroke. So it has a stroke around it. It might be black. You can increase the size of the stroke. Change the color of your cube. I want to add a. I don't want any stroke around it. So I make it 0. And I want to add a say I want a turquoise. Okay. Okay. Let's animate that simply. By rotating your mouse scroll or changing this zoom, you can zoom in or zoom out, or you can simply use the zoom tool to zoom in, or when you press Alt, zoom out of your environment, your composition setting. Okay, let's animate that. How? You can see that by just making a new shape, a new layer has been added. Any layer that is on top of other layers, they will be seen first. Okay, just close and open this tiny triangle next to your layer, and you will see that we have these transition parameters or attributes. I call them attributes because that's the normal way of calling the parameters in After Effects. So when I open the transform set of attributes, I have scale, anchor point, position, scale, rotation, everything. So I want to make it pop into the window. So while rotating, it comes and then returns back. This is the effect that I want. So the triangle comes in and rotates back. So there's a clock. There's a stopwatch next to any name, you know. So there's a stopwatch next to a scale. There's a stopwatch next to rotation. That means that we are going to add keyframes. What is a keyframe? Keyframe is the actual turning point of the movement. So let's say next to a scale, I turn the stopwatch and I say 0. So it becomes 0, and you see that a keyframe has been added in time 0. In time 0, we have a keyframe now. In which parameter? In a scale. So I come to 1 second. Maybe 1 second is enough. 1:13 or 1 second, 10 frames, that's enough. And I bring it back to 100. So what happens? When I scrub on my timeline, I see that it's scaling in. But I want to add some rotation as well. Okay, let's add some rotation as well. I go back to the frame 0. I turn on the stopwatch next to the rotation, and I come back to this frame 1:10 again, and I add some rotation. Maybe 270 degrees. Okay, the square rotates in.
Sorry.
Okay.
We're a little bit stuck, yeah, including me. Just because I forgot my shape, which is regular.
Okay, I explain everything again, and I come and look at your monitor and see what you're doing now. Just let me